Dune House is constructed out of contradictions. It looks ancient and futuristic. It is transparent but must act as a bunker. It is cold and somehow welcoming. It is monumental but still manages to look fresh. It's unlike anything out there, and for a good reason. Hello, my name is Konrad and this is Architect Reflex channel. Today I would like to share with you one of the projects that was on my mind for quite some time, and it is based on the book called Dune. I will not pretend that Dune was one of these books that I knew since I was a teenager. It was not. However, when I saw a recent adaptation of this great novel by Denis, it was an immediate emotional click. It was something fresh, something unlike anything I have seen before. It was very different and yet it felt familiar. So it took me a deep dive into the history of this universe to understand why I have this strange feeling. You see, Dune is often described as the foundation for the majority of modern sci-fi as we know it today. It was written in 1965 and yet its scale, ideas and even particular places can be found in everything what followed. Do you know something called Star Wars or Star Trek? Yes, they were both built on Dune's legacy. Dune House is designed on the planet Arrakis. The winds on Arrakis go famously up to 850 km per hour. Combine that with sandstorms and you get this mixture that can penetrate even through thick metal plate. This leaves stone as the only viable building material. Then there's the unbearable heat that averages around 60 degrees Celsius. Already at 50 degrees, heat becomes toxic to humans. This requires buildings to have this very massive walls with a lot of volume inside in order to manage the temperature inside. All of it combined makes the architecture of Arrakis extremely robust and functional. It was inspired by World War II bunkers mixed with detailing you can find on ziggurat and Aztec temples. We're talking here about heavy angular forms with very slim narrow openings that are designed specifically to make sure that you're being protected from this hostile environment. However, the environment of Arrakis is not only brutal, but it's actually quite beautiful and majestic. And as mysterious and as impressive as the architecture of Dune is, I was always wondering, is it possible to design a space that would allow you to marvel at this beautiful scenery while being fully protected from its environment? In other words, how to design a transparent building in a desert that gives the same level of protection as a bunker. In order to do it, I knew I had to start looking at this section first. I like solving problems by looking at fundamental unchangeable factors and letting them to shape and guide my design until we have something usable. In this case, the whole idea for this house is to give you a unique perspective over this beautiful scenery. For this reason, I knew that the whole floor plan has to be elevated into the air. Okay, I see the pattern. Check out Floating House in the link in the description below. Okay, but elevating the floor plan actually helps me to solve my second biggest problem, which is aerodynamics. In order to minimize the impact of 850 km per hour winds, I shaped this section in a way to guide the wind above and below my house. This would significantly reduce the force caused by the wind and also the erosion caused by the sand. So now we have this angular form hanging in the air and we would like to open it up for the view. And I mean really open. So the thing I did was to fully open all 4 facades with 3.6 meter high glazing. This is unlike anything you can see in this desert environment, dominated by narrow, slim bunker-like openings. This big glazing we have to then push inside the volume to ensure that no direct sun can ever enter the interior throughout the day. But now the next big question is actually how to make this transparent building into a bunker. How to protect this big glazing from sandstorms. I wanted to design something that would really convey this feeling of danger. And the solution I ended up with was to design a series of blocks on the outer shell that act as movable shutters. These blocks are then balanced by another series of blocks on the inside. The system is designed to look simple, but at the same time very powerful. The stones have this really rough texture and visible drill lines from the quarry. They are hanging on the steel cables that go through the stone and have a visible bolt on the other end. One stone block on the inside is balancing one shutter on the outside. And one system like this weighs over 25 tons. I think this should be enough to withstand any natural phenomenon. The last part that was quite important for me was how to suspend all of this weight in the air. I knew I wanted to keep the view of the desert undisturbed, so any kind of columns were out of the question. This led me to look at bridge constructions very quickly, and that was it. In our case, I have proposed 2 massive cores that gives the support for an oversized U-beam on the top and a slimmer floor slab at the bottom. Finally, these 2 cores helped me to solve the last problem, which is the heat. These 2 cores, apart from its structural function, can also act as a huge air shafts. The air is first being pushed into the ground and then returns back into the house, creating a very simple heat exchanger. So smart. So now when we know how the house functions, let's look at the layout. We get into the house with stairs that are clearly visible in the project silhouette. They lead us to the center of the house, where we enter next to this magnificent epic bronze mural. It is put there to set up the stage for what's to follow. This almost exact mural can also be seen in the movie Dune. It depicts Shai-Hulud, a sandworm that natives see as a physical embodiment of the one god. These magnificent creatures are unique to this planet, making it even more appropriate to put their spirit in the center of the house. As you maybe have noticed by now, I like open floor concepts, and I prefer to design spaces that allow for continuous movement without any dead ends. This is why the space around the mural is divided into 4 clear zones. First, when you enter, you are welcomed by dining space, where guests naturally enter from the staircase. Secondly, you move on to the kitchen, with a raw stone island and space for informal dining every day. On the opposite side of the dining area, I created a big lounge space that allows you for sitting in every direction. The loop is finished by the work area. The desk is actually put in the exact middle of the whole house, making it a statement and showing my unhealthy relationship to work. Moving on both ends of the house, I placed bathrooms with walk-in closets that act as a privacy buffer before you can reach 4 private bedrooms, 2 on each end of the house. Do you remember those suspended stones that are counterbalancing the exterior shutters? Well, I thought it would be a nice touch to place one stone directly above each bed, to make you really feel the weight of the architecture. Let me know in the comments if you would dare to not only lay down in that bed, but actually have a good night's sleep knowing that 25 tons of rocks levitate above you. Generally speaking, as mentioned in the beginning, it was an interesting challenge because it's full of contradictions. On one hand, you're designing an architecture that is ancient, but somehow should look futuristic. Then, because of this extreme environment, you're dealing with this monumental temple-like architecture that is the opposite of fresh architecture I'm always looking for. And finally, we are designing with all of the stone that is quite cold and unwelcoming. But at the end, it's still a house, so it should look human and cozy. I do not know if I succeeded on any of those points, but one thing is certain, that designing on such high conceptual level was a lot of joy and fun. Now when you know the project inside out, let's have one more look at Dune House designed by Architect Reflects channel. See you in the next one. Bye.